enough time dipping our toes in, right? Maybe it's time we take a little cannonball into the pool here. Uh, and it's actually a good segue talking about pools, because
I was just about to say, yeah, that's very appropriate. Very appropriate.
there's a certain NCAA competition for swimming that happened recently, for women's swimming particularly. It's been in the news a lot. Leah Thomas has someone that has come forth as a transgender person and is now competing in this event as a woman with these other women, and has blown them all out of the water, as is to kind of be expected for someone who does that in his stature compared to other biological females. So
Correct. Correct.
it's kind of what do you expect here? So this has been a lot of controversy going around here, a lot to be said. So I really wanted to dive into this topic with James here. So James, what's your thoughts? When did you hear about it?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, as a conservative, a conservative Christian, I really try my best to rely on a lot of conservative news and things like that. Like even with the Daily Wire, I pay every year a specific fee so I can have access to everything that they offer
Sure.
throughout the year. So and they're actually coming up with a lot of stuff. Their own set of movies, all this stuff, daily shows from different people that Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, all these very sharp
We're
conservative
not
minds.
sponsored, I swear.
But and I really enjoy them. But something that each of the and a lot of other groups as well that conservative news that I listen to, everyone's been addressing it. Is the Leah
Yeah.
Thomas situation, and we all for a lot of us, even on the right, I'm going to say, there are certain areas that we may disagree on. Like maybe Donald Trump and certain policies and things like that. But when it comes to this, I feel like everyone is on the same page, at least from the conservative perspective, that this is unfair, this is wrong,
Yeah.
and yeah, and imagine, even like I don't know, like you have a daughter, like imagine she's disciplined herself to eat a certain way, to work out, to really try her best to she's a teenager, she's disciplined herself with her friends to actually commit herself to a craft, swimming, and somebody kind of glides in who, compared to other men, has done incredibly poorly, and then come in and like beat you, your daughter and her friends, you know, because physically the person is constructed entirely different than them, and it's just
Yeah.
I don't I honestly I don't know if I'm as bothered by the fact that the person had the audacity to step into this position and go forward with this, or I don't know if it's everyone behind uh that's supporting this. I mean, how did this even happen? So I'm really confused. How did something like that even take place? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I definitely do not approve. I am a Christian man, and, as you know, and so I can't stand with pretending that someone is one gender when all know from a scientific perspective, objectively, that we have there's a difference between XX chromosomes and XY chromosomes. If we all die and somebody digs up our bones 10 years from now, after dead, they can tell, if we're male or female. So
Yeah.
that's not really, yeah. So that's not really a discussion or debate to me. But yeah, I'm actually troubled. Why is our society, or at least some of us, entertaining this kind of behavior? So that's something that I'm really disappointed. I'm going to say I'm disappointed in. You know.
Yeah, I think something to get out of the way first that's important is that, like, first of all, I'm not sure exactly where in the Bible it talks about transgenderism, if it does at all. I know it's very specific on, like, God created man and woman, and there's not much in between, and it's very clear on other parts. It's like marriage and everything, and what perversion is and how it is sin. Um, I want to get out there that it's not like a judgmental thing. We're all sinners. I think that's a good message to spread too, where it's like and it's all the same in God's divine, perfect, morally perfect eyes, right? Someone stealing something and then someone, you know, committing a murder or something else, it's all like the same to someone who's morally perfect. So we are all sinners, and that's not to say I just don't want to judge other people's sin versus others, right? That's not what this is
Mm,
about. I'm simply trying to say and talk about it is something uh, that is sinful. Typically, when you talk about these things, can you go into kind of I guess because you kind of did some labeling, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian. This is why I think these things. Do you always kind of think like that, where it's like this is
black and
my
white,
what would you say?
black and white.
I guess, but more so just like this is I'm conservative, and so I believe all these things, and that's kind of why. It you
Mhm.
don't have. I mean, I'm sure you do have a more personal reason to why you believe what you believe,
Mm.
but is that kind of your go-to, where it's like I'm this label, and this is because of that. I support that.
You know what? I mean, when it comes to my opinion about, for example, uh, what's the best pizza topping? Okay, that would be something that is subjective.
Okay.
Okay, you and I are entitled to, for example, for me, I love meat lovers. I love pepperoni and sausage. Okay, to me, there is nothing better than that. To
Yeah.
me, so to my understanding, when it comes to subjective opinions, yeah, they can shift, they can change. They're based on preferences. You may have a different, it's the same thing with our taste in vehicles or all these different things. But when we're talking about morality, when we're talking about reality, uh, well, now that's not subjective. Now we have to rely on an objective standard.
Mhm.
Now, yeah, and we have 7 billion people we share, over 7 billion people we share this planet with. We can't ask everyone's opinion on morality, and we could potentially get 7 billion different answers. But there is, you and I know that there is an objective standard that already has defined, and transcended our opinion, and that is God's objective standard of morality and justice. And so God's word is supposed to be the foundation for me as a Christian, as a conservative, as a man. Um, that is my go-to when it comes to morality, when it comes to
Yeah.
justice, when it comes to reality. But yeah, these other areas, like even my label as a man. When I say I'm a man, I'm assuming the person I'm speaking to can define, oh, he's a man, therefore he
Yeah.
has this and that.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, and it's important. It's important. Words, are important. They have certain specific definitions that represent certain things. So when I say conservative, a person may say, oh, hey, he's obviously conservating traditional marriage. He's conservating the family unit. He supports that. And the same thing with Christian. I would hope somebody would know that the Bible is my authority, not how I feel on a Thursday or a Monday, or
Yeah.
it's God's word. Because my feelings can change and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's important to have these, and I call them titles or but it's important to make language important. It's the same thing with how we would identify somebody who is transgender. What if I told you right now that I identify as a woman? It's like, okay, so from here on, how would you choose to refer to me? You know,
Yeah.
now you could say, well, James, since you identify as this one, I'm gonna use the pronouns that you prefer, or you could say in reality, and you could say, well, regardless of what you think, James, you're a man.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
for that specifically, it'd be hard for me because I've known you for so long. We've talked so long,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you are a man, and I've referred you
Okay,
as such for so long. It'd be hard to
okay.
switch on the spot. It'd definitely be hard for a
Oh,
while.
oh,
I
I mean,
think,
it could happen. I mean, who knows?
yeah,
You know.
and I think in a general sense, if you meet someone on the street, I have a general nature to kind of keep the peace and
Okay, okay.
let's get
Got
everyone working for the same team. There's no need to be
Hey,
on opposite sides. So
got
absolutely, I'll be respectful if you make that stuff known, right? I think if I meet someone on the street, it's going to be what you look like, what I can tell, right, visually. Some people are better than others, but as far as like referring to someone and having people change the way they talk to people, yeah, I don't think you can change the vernacular we use, especially for, like you said, when there's an objective standard of biological male and female, right? And a question, I think you were getting to it. I don't want to steal your thunder, but the question that's been kind of roaming around the internet is, how do you define a woman, right? How do you define a woman?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
And
oh yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
first heard that from Matt Walsh on a Dr. Phil interview, right? That went kind of viral. And I don't want to, I know I guess he's on the Daily Wire or something, but I don't want to sing his praises too much. I saw some tweet or
Yeah, yeah.
something where he said something to the effect of like, we all look at things that we want, but we don't do them. We don't act on these things. And I think he was talking about transgenderism, but he talked about how we have desires and we don't act on them. But then he mentioned like everyone, like he'll say something like everyone looks at a woman and whatever, and then he says like
Hmm.
everyone looks at kids and doesn't do anything. But and then that's like, well, what? So I
Hmm.
saw on Twitter an interaction where people were calling him out for that. So that's a little
Okay.
suspect.
I
Uh,
may have to. Yeah, I may have to look into that.
I can send you that, but then that's not to say someone can't mess up or say something bad. Like, right, we all do it, but
Mhm.
I don't take anyone's word 100%, obviously. But
Okay.
that's just kind of baseline stuff I wanted to say. But as far as like, yeah, there is a biological standard, like you said, XY chromosomes and XX chromosomes that we can see later on. And even now, with the new Supreme Court Justice lady that's being nominated, they asked her that, and they asked her a bunch of other stuff, and she said, "I'm not a biologist, right?"
Uh,
Um,
Lord help us.
so we got to be biologists now to see if we're male and female. It's kind of where we're
Lord
at.
help us. Uh,
It's just it's tough, man. It's culturally, there's a big
no.
shift, and it's
Uh,
it's just people are like going to all sorts of different things now, and it's weird because I know like historically, right, there have been people or whatever that have these feelings and everything, and that's throughout time and everything, but it's like how much, like, what is reality at some point, like you said, people can identify as a bunch of different things. What is the definition? Because you have to have some basis, like you said, for the majority of people. There's always going to be outliers, but we can't make rules and standards for like the outliers, right? um yeah, so it's definitely a interesting conversation, and people get so offended by it, and it's not so, when you hold something that fiber close to your being, like it's tough,
mhm.
I think to more so the effect of transgenderism, I guess. And I mean, I don't have many transgender friends, first of all, so I can't, I'm gonna say what I say from what I believe, but it's like, I'm just upfront. I don't have that many access to people like that. I don't have that many conversations, and I know I watched Dave Chappelle's special recently, right? And he's always getting a bunch of flack for talking bad about them. But if you actually watch what he's saying, it's coming from like love. It's not like a hostile thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then his whole thing has been that like all these other communities are getting more protection in society than black people. Where it's like we all just forgot about that, right? And it's so how is
Yeah.
so I think he brings up very good like topics and like lines and ideas about the whole subject, how it's kind of gotten crazy where like they're the ultimate uh protected class in society, that there are protected classes, and that's not, right? We're supposed to kind of all be on the same playing field.
Mhm.
Um, but kind of as far as like the root problem, what I'll say, just to get my spiel out there, and I just want to say that like I think it's some problem of like self love, right? Self love
Okay.
is a universal struggle that everyone throughout history kind of goes through.
Mm,
Everyone struggles with it and has a journey to find that, and some
mm,
unfortunately, some don't. Some suffer from depression, some take their lives and everything. It is committed, like it's responsible for the taking of so many lives throughout history. It's such an important part of your foundational upbringing and in your foundational like personhood, right? It's a journey everyone goes through, and it should be focused on. It should be prioritized. You need to be able to look in the mirror and love yourself. Sure, you don't like where you are, but you accept that you can change that and like get to like make actionable daily steps to improve your life, right? But
mm,
still having love for yourself every step of the way, right? I'm pretty heavy right now because I college football and everything. I was an old lineman, but I know that I can be fit someday and I can be healthy, and I plan to get there someday. But that doesn't mean I don't love myself now, right?
mm,
Um,
mm,
I think you can love yourself and still have a chance to improve, right? But what gets
mm,
hairy is like seeing other things as answers to problems when they're not, right? Like finding a quick solution. I'm going to feel better because I feel like a woman to become a woman, and that's, somehow we've made it available now when before it
mm,
wasn't possible, right?
mm,
So I think that's just I don't think it's good that we have that option, right? Like before you had to like sit down and like introspect and meditate and figure out your problems and why you feel this way and learn to love yourself and live with it, right? And still be a productive member of society. But now it's like we can do almost anything, and the suicide rate of transgender people is like sky high, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
So
is.
clearly it's not a solution, and that's not. I haven't met many people, I'm sure there are plenty of transgender people that are happy and more fulfilled, and that's great, power to you. But I think there's certain lines, like this is me having a social conversation. We can talk about these ideas philosophically, theoretically. I think there's a point in society, and it's terrible because we're inching closer and closer to this, and I think there's a point when it needs to be stopped. Like there's actively damage that is being done to society. And, we can talk mentally and philosophically all day about this, and I'd love to have that conversation. Please reach out to me. But I think it starts endangering society when you start introducing it to young children. When there's people that kids are very impressionable, right? They're gonna do whatever you tell them to, essentially. Like if you keep convincing this person that they're a girl, they're gonna like say they're a girl sometimes. Even me, like there's photo evidence. There was one Halloween I went as a witch because my brother was doing Harry Potter, right? That doesn't mean that I wanted to be a woman, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was still like let them express that stuff, as their kids and find out where they fit in society. It's not to say that boys can't play with girls or whatever and have their sister dress them up, put makeup, whatever. Like it's not gonna kill the kid or anything, But don't like constantly. Are you sure you're a boy? Are you sure you wouldn't want to be a girl? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
reinforcing this like this insecurity. Like it's not okay to be what they are. And when you're going that route, what are you saying? That it's not okay for there to be effeminate men, and it's not okay for there to be like tomboy girls?
Mm.
We have these roles in society. Everyone is different. Everyone leans different ways, but
Right.
that doesn't mean you can we just change our biology. It's
Right.
perfectly okay to live your life how you are and be into the things you're into and act a certain way, but like you're still a man or you're still a woman. You know what I'm saying? So for sure, very dangerous with, like I said, I think the kids thing is where it kind of crosses a line, and then also like literally putting hormone blockers on kids. It's awful. It's affecting their development, and when they can't even choose something, right? They don't know what they're doing. That's a lifelong decision, and they're making it without with either ill guidance or not the proper guidance, right? So
Mm.
I think
Mm.
that's very harmful to society. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
go. Sorry,
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. There's another one I
no,
have.
no, it's okay. No, no. Actually, I actually want to hear more of what you have to say, but I just have to say that, for me, if I was to express something like this, yeah, sure, it can have some influence or impact, but I love the fact that, you being a father, like it means something entirely, at a different level. Like this is not
Yeah.
a theoretical idea for you. This is like your reality.
Yes.
This is your reality. I mean, just in a few years, you may decide with your wife to decide, um, I don't know, homeschooling. I don't know what direction you guys are, public school, but yeah, this is like a concern. It's already literally on the front lines right now, so it's something you actually have to think about like right now,
And deal
so
with.
I
Yeah.
love, yeah, yeah, because yeah, this can potentially be an issue. Like even if, your daughter necessarily doesn't drift into this, but her friends will, and it's like, how do you address that? How do you address
Yeah.
that? So I love hearing your thoughts about this because yeah, this is not like a theory. This is actually like something that you have to
Relevant.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, for you, especially for you, especially.
And that's a big topic to get into as far as the kids thing. I was kind of bringing it up as a side thing, but it's huge, right? Our main
Right? Yeah.
thing here is my
Yeah.
second point, where it kind of edges over to harm in society versus just a philosophical discussion and self-love and something we need to work out personally, into where you're damaging others and the reputation of our and every not reputation, but like you know what I'm saying, like it's a
Yeah.
damage to society when biological males are allowed to compete against biological females in sporting events. This is one of the more recent, like I said, the Leah Thomas thing is the most recent event of it, and he was this guy who transitioned into a lady, and he was a swimmer athletically and for college, and he competed at the I think championships, and he beat out all the females by a wide margin, because he's really like biologically a male and he can
Correct.
physically. Like there's no
Correct.
chance that
Correct.
they have. And even the other female athletes afterwards, they all went on their own podium, the three of them, and they took their own picture.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's just it's unfair, and I don't want to, it's not. I'm not trying to attack the guy or anything. It's just that like it's literally unfair for them. They have no chance. And this is it's more recent, it's more relevant right now, but it's it's less of a problem, I think, because before there was instances of male to transitioned into a female person, boxing or in a
Oh
fighting
yeah.
events against women, right? And it's like an excuse to just beat on women. And like you look at how it is and like, yeah, no way the woman's gonna win. That's awful. It's just a man beating up women in that
I've
arena.
watched a few of those fights, and sometimes it's interesting to see this professional kickboxer or boxer, female, wailing on this guy, biological guy, and the guy's taking the hits.
Yep.
He's taking the hits, going through, and I'm just thinking this is just terrible. It's just crazy how we had this first wave of feminism that I actually agree with. The first wave, when it first started, I understood. I felt like there were some actual things that needed to take place in society where women needed to get acknowledged and opportunity. I agree with that. But now we're on third, fourth wave, and and just what's happening today. I almost feel like I'm not sure if I'm disappointed, and I said this earlier, with the men that are transitioning to quote unquote females and doing this, or the people that are entertaining this and allowing them to do
Yeah.
this. Because if I told you, I'm Superman and I'm wearing a cape and I'm going, it's like it's one thing for me to say that, but if everyone else is going along with it, it's like what's wrong with all of you? What's wrong
Yeah.
with all of you? So, yeah, and this is something Ken brought up a lot in a lot of her conversations, because as soon as she became a parent, she realized that like already she was fighting certain battles, but when she became a parent, everything became like on the front lines
So
for her.
much
Like
more
she realized,
relevant. Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and when she speaks even on her show, I get it now. I get it. Like now she doesn't have the option to be quiet. She has a child in this world. She has a child. Like everything has changed now.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a certain, and I said at the beginning, like when I meet people, I'm like, let's all be on the same team. No need to argue. We can get on the same side. I try to be the deliberator, right,
Yeah.
negotiator, and get everyone
Hmm.
going the same way and resolve problems. But there's a definite line that is crossed from like discussion and staying civil to like you're actively, hurting. I guess kids being grown up, or ladies and women in that field, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and it's just it's sad to see that like so much of society is like we're so hyper tolerant nowadays. And it's because there is no objective moral standard, right? It's not popular to have an objective moral standard,
I'm
and
telling you.
everything is just like anyone does is okay. And now
However you feel, just do it, and
we have
that's
people
reality.
that are like pedophile apologists and like encouraging that
Mhm.
too nowadays. It's crazy. Like, where does the line end? It's there's got to be some type of place where like this is harmful for society. We need to stop. And even if you don't feel that way, there's like this is something that I'm comfortable enough talking about, especially because this is one of the more clear results. For
Yes.
the athletes themselves, they see it. And then also just biologically, that man, like, I know he believes he's a woman and he went with whatever process he did, but there's a reason that he beat them so easily and that he will continue to, and they don't have a chance
Yeah.
to win. It's
Yeah.
because he is a man. He has different genes and genetics and everything. That's a fact, you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
same thing with the dudes, like in any sport. It shouldn't be like allowed. Like whatever you believe, whatever you think you are, a man should not be allowed to compete against a woman in a competition. Like they're just biologically different. It's not
Yeah.
fair, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And I saw one of my good buddies from college, Rev Coca. He writes different sports articles and everything, and he's on the Far End of the Bench podcast with my buddy Jimmy Pilato sometimes. We'll put a link to that somewhere. But
Cool.
he posted a interesting take where it's like he feels the same way, where it's not fair, right? But what do we do with these transgender athletes? Do we give them another league of their own? And then that's the problem of like not many people would watch it or do anything with it. Like the female rankings are already pretty low, right? Is it about popularity or is it just about competition? And then do we just have them keep competing with males or like where they're comfortable? He didn't have a solution, and it's hard to think of a solution, but I think, something like, yeah, compete biologically with where you're at. You can feel how you want, but that shouldn't allow you to just become from 400 something place to number one.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's just not. And I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put myself in this guy's shoes, give him every benefit of the doubt. I'm like, okay, if
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
really thought I was this woman, and that makes me feel better, and that I won't, it helps me with my self love, my depression, or whatever. But I love competing. I love swimming. You built your whole life like, sure, I get it. I understand wanting to keep being an athlete, and it's hard. Like, it shouldn't be taken away from you. But I think you yourself need to realize your advantages. Like, I'm not sure if he's just blind to that or if he hasn't
Mm,
considered. I'm sure he has. I don't want to assume that he hasn't thought about this stuff. He must have,
mm,
right? But as far
mm.
as like, how can you be okay with that though? Because it's not a real victory, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's not.
I mean, why you won that way, and maybe like you can identify as a woman, but like still compete with the males where you're supposed to be, so that where you are adequately, right? So I'm not sure, and I don't want to pretend to understand his reasoning, but like I would just think like this is like I said this, and then when it comes to targeting children with this ideology, I think is where it steps over the lines of peaceful civil conversation and debate into actual harm for society.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing I was going to say is that, and you brought up a good point because I've never really entertained the idea of thinking about this as much. But yeah, I don't really know his story. I don't know what he's going through, or what even caused him to even transition and even think of, entertaining the idea of supposedly being a woman. But obviously, there's something going on there.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever, I've really thought about it. And of course, I know. Um, as a Christian man, I understand that we all come into this world with a sinful nature. This is like just a godless, idea of just like doing our own thing. We want
Yeah.
to do our own will, yeah. And so the idea is for God to intervene in that and create, us the people that He intended for us to be. And that's why we change. This is why, but if that change doesn't happen, yeah, you're going to dig yourself deep in these holes emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, mentally. And yeah, I don't know his story. I don't know what's going on with him. I'll be honest. I mean, I've kept up with a lot of um, stories of transgenderism, and there's a lot of sexual assaults when people were small. That
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. And you mentioned the suicide rates, how high it is. I'm really surprised no one is mentioning that because it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He,
but I was just going to say that, yeah, it's just obviously there has to be something behind the scenes with this guy because, yeah, obviously it's like and I don't know. I mean, I actually now that I'm thinking about it, maybe after this podcast, I'm going to check out and see if I can see Leah, on some just some being interviewed. I would
maybe
love to
hear
see
from
like
her,
the
or
mindset.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Hmm.
and that's the thing. And yeah, you mentioned the suicide rate and everything, and the thing I've heard a lot of times is the suicide rate is so high because they are so oppressed, so picked on, so made fun of in society, right? And I mean, you can look at that, but I don't think it's very, very based, right? There's tons of people that are picked on even more in society or whatever, right? But then it's not adequate numbers. It's like only that specific people, and it might be, I don't know. I don't want to get crazy and be like, oh, mental illness and stuff, and we need to
Yeah,
put them
yeah.
in electric chairs, and they need, like that, all that horrible
Lobotomy,
stuff. Yeah, yeah, all that
lobotomy.
horrible stuff that happened back then, where it's like you need,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's definitely a conversation to be had, but like I said, I think in society we're getting too far in it, where it's actively hurting people now. You know,
I would agree. I would agree. I would
um,
agree.
and yeah, about like hearing his story, I think it's important to just give everyone benefit of the doubt, and I want to know that side of it, right? I'm open to hearing it. I just this is kind of where we stand as where we kind of have to stand with our moral standards again, But there's definitely sympathy. There's empathy there. I feel something's wrong. I feel for you as a person, as a human. I don't want you to feel left out or unincluded or anything. But like it is like just fundamentally wrong to compete against women in that nature. Like it's not a right victory. It's not just.
Agreed. Agreed. Agreed.
Is there anything else about this topic you wanted to get out?
No, no, I actually think we covered a lot. I mean, if I was to go any longer, I would just be repeating basically and
Yeah.
reinforcing what I already said because
S-
yeah, yeah, it's just unfortunate.
There
I kind of feel like yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
there is something to be said about not just the suicide rate, but just about it affecting kids, right? And a lot of talk and everything was happened recently about, I guess Texas had a new bill that is enforcing like it to be reported if someone is being encouraged to be a trans kid or something. I'm not sure the whole thing. I haven't read the bill. I just heard the outcry from people
Okay.
on Twitter. Someone was saying it is a genocide of trans people is happening right now, and no one's looking at it right. They're hated by all society and everyone, as if they're being killed or something, or and it's
Mm,
not. I don't think
mm,
that's not what's happening. It's just I think it's something like I said. I think it stems from the problem of self-love. You don't accept how you are as a person, as a body, something you can't change or you couldn't change so long in your life before. In history, we
mm,
couldn't change it, right? There's certain
mm,
things that are out of your control that you need to learn to live with and
mm,
then thrive
mm,
with
mm,
and then love yourself and become the best version of yourself with, right? Certain things you can't change. I can't change the color of my skin. You can't change the color of your skin. We need to learn to accept these things and like not have it hold us back and not look to change it, but to thrive with it, right? Um
mm.
so with that it's like yeah, it's not so much that they're being oppressed or anything. It's not a genocide, but and it's just I don't think it's right to teach that to kids. And there's definitely people already like on TikTok I've seen and other things. There's teachers that are like, oh, I love it when kids come forward with their sexuality with me or whatever, and it's like that shouldn't be your role. You're an instructor for a lesson or whatever. You shouldn't,
Yeah, yeah.
you're not someone to encourage. And there's already like stories of people like encouraging the kids to like keep it secret, come to them for their meetings and not tell their parents about it, right? Like, how do you feel?
Mm.
Like, do you still like that whole ideology is toxic. It's bad. It's confusing to children, and you might convince a kid to take these hormone blockers that will then just harm their development for their whole
Yeah.
lives.
Yes,
It's
yes.
awful.
Yeah, it's really we live in a crazy world, but and honestly, Tim, um, I used to get a little wrapped up with a lot of what was happening in the world, and I mean, I still get involved with the discussions and learning, and I'm just soaking in the news literally every single day or every other day of what's happening, what's new with our United States government, what's happening in Congress, what's happening in the judicial system, like you name it. Um, but one of the things that I always have to remind myself as a Christian man is that the key to all of this is really the gospel. We come to this world with this fallen nature that we're going to have these convoluted, distorted views on everything. And even me, I mean, even the covenant of marriage, I used to think was one big joke. I just thought, why would some guy imprison himself to one woman? And like once upon a time, I thought about this, and I thought it was some type of government thing to kind of keep the sheep, in line and that kind of stuff. Oh, let me just pair these guys together. It's easier to manage you guys, with the tax program and everything else. And I realized that no, it's not a government thing. God established that.
Yeah.
God established the marriage covenant. It's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to make him a helper suitable for him. Genesis 2:18. God made marriage, and so I realized that it's the gospel that has to um, be, set forth, and God is the one that is going to use that to intervene and change a person's heart. And but if that doesn't happen, this is what the world we see around us is why these things are happening. This is our fallen nature. In our fallen nature, it's okay to you know have multiple sexual partners. In our fallen nature, it's okay to abuse children. In our fallen nature, it's okay to use uh, you know destructive and words to tear somebody down. It's okay. It's okay, and we'll justify it in our minds because we don't have we're disconnected from our Creator. But this is sort of why it's important to make sure that we're part of these conversations, and we're doing what God desires, like raising our family, in a godly way, but also sharing the gospel, because that's the only thing that's really going to change. We should get, in the political arena and be involved in these discussions, and vote and things like that. But
Yeah.
it has to be the gospel ultimately that's going to change, because other than that, we're just going to be broken people that's just kind of on the hamster wheel, going around in circles, doing, burning energy and going nowhere.
Yeah, no, we for sure, as a society, we are morally bankrupt. That is a problem, absolutely, and it influences all these things. And the other thing you mentioned a while ago was that like a lot of these things, transgenderism happens because of a child, like a child molestation thing or like some type of abuse like that, right? And same
Right.
things with a lot of gay people and everything. That's kind of how it comes about.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so the line is like accepting gay marriage and everything, and then accept like, oh, I was turned this way, right? So it's okay, it's valid, right? And then it's like you're just acknowledging and agreeing with child pedophilia and like abuse, and that's not
Yeah.
okay. We can't as a society
Mhm.
accept that. That has to be a moral standard
Mhm.
where it's like that's not okay, and that is the root of a lot of these problems.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's not. I don't have sit here have many solutions for you, right? And
Yeah.
I can preach the Bible and the gospel all day. There's still going to be sinners every day, and we're still sinners
Mhm.
and everything.
Mhm.
It's not going to
Mhm.
necessarily change drastically what's going on, but just whoever is listening, right? Just recognizing the importance of that and like living our own lives justly as much as we can. We're imperfect, but striving for perfection and encouraging others to live the best versions of themselves as well. That's kind of the lesson we can take from this and just put into society and let those roots kind of take care of themselves. And I think when you start a family or when you start a group or whatever, as long as you as a leader in any facet have these kind of questions, you don't have to have answers, but you have to have thoughts and like processes, right? You have to have thought about this and and consider a moral standard. I think that'll do well to guide you throughout anything you do in life. And like I said on Twitter, they're talking about like most what's the most important problem facing like young men today or whatever. And I had three. It was like fatherless homes, porn addiction, and then moral bankruptcy. And all those things, like it's when it's as a society it comes to be tolerant and accept something so much, it's just it seems like it's commonplace and it seems like it's okay, but it's not. You have to have a moral standard for yourself to and teach it to your children. And as far as the fatherhood thing, right, that's how we fix a lot of these problems through generationally, you know raising them to have a moral standard, and that'll be the leaders of the next generation, and that's how we kind of fix this problem. It's just morally corrupt and godless nation, and it's tough to think about.
Yeah, man.
And not to say that definitely crusades happened, all that stuff. Like, yeah, not don't be overzealous and stuff and all that, but just you have to have some type of moral standard in your life. That's kind of helps you see through and sift through these different
Absolutely.
societal problems.
Well said. Well said. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So see if we how many followers and subscribers we lose because of that one, right? Uh,
What are you talking about? They're going to be hunting us down. Yeah,
pitchforks and torches, James. Pitchforks and torches.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Um, no, I mean if you're still here, if you're still listening, we'd love to hear from you, right? And that's something a lot of podcasts like. This isn't one where it's like different opinions every week. Like we agree on a lot of things, we disagree on a few things. We haven't hit
Yeah.
too many on the head yet, but I'm sure we will at some point. Um, and so yeah, please, it's from a place of like love. We're still learning this thing. We're talking about these topics. Like we
Absolutely.
have love for all of God's children. We want you all to just think about these things, right? And reach out to us if you're struggling, have questions. Like we want to help. We're all going through that faith walk and everything in general, so we want to help you out too. Um, just the walk of life. But so the next thing we got
All right.
on
Here
the
we go.
docket is a shameless plug. James, you have a YouTube channel. You talk about
I
things.
do. I do.
It's gonna be
Yes,
right
guys.
there.
Yeah, yeah. James here. James here. I do have a YouTube channel, Unique Perspectives. I have been really committing myself to just really getting a lot of content out the first 3 to 6 months since I started. I started the beginning of this year, so I'm really going to try to explore a lot of different issues that's going on in just about every area, from religion to societal issues, injustices, philosophies. I even talk about guys with foot
I
fetishes
was
and
all
all
the way
that.
to feet.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. In fact,
So
those
yeah,
are probably my biggest videos that yeah, a lot of people are responding to. I'm getting a lot of attention from those.
sounds
So
sounds great.
yeah, I'm like yeah. It's
The,
barely been a week. It's like almost 400 views. So it's
wow,
yeah, man.
nice,
So it's
nice.
yeah. So it's just but yeah, I really think it's just I would like to put everything on the table. And even though I have a Christian conservative background, I am open to at least discussing things, just as what we're doing here,
Yeah.
and I just think it'd be awesome just to connect with you guys. So feel free to reach out if you want some more information about that, please. We'll have links up and all that
Yeah.
good stuff.
So links will be, I'll reference it there, and then everything's in the description. Our YouTube channels, all our social media. Reach out to us there. We're posting content. We're talking about different messages. Both of us are. Every different formats to see what we're talking about and see what the topic's kind of going to be like, and then that's how we get our questions too. So just please reach out through the comments or whatever, however you're feeling. We don't have any sponsors yet. Soon we will. If you guys
Not yet,
yeah, not
but we
yet. Because
will.
actually, it's like easier than I thought. Look, going on Anchor, it says that like all the other podcast places that we put it, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Audible, Google Podcasts. By the way, get it there now. Look at it. But the more listeners we have there is how we get like first sponsors, and it only needs like 50. It was a lot less than I thought.
That's
So
cool.
so
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
if you guys are on a
That's
long
very
trip
realistic.
or something,
Okay.
please consider checking us out on those platforms, listening
Yeah.
through. That'll help us out too. Come to YouTube for the little videos, the little clips, and if you want to see it live, right? Uh, all sorts of facial expressions and stuff.
We might have to do a live video down the line,
Oh
You
well,
know,
yeah,
I,
no, we
you
might
know.
do a live discussion sometime. That'd be great.
Oh yeah,
Super open to
that'd
that.
be awesome.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
so we
really.
don't have sponsors yet. So we're plugging ourselves, right? We're shooting. I don't have any products or anything to sell you, but YouTube, and we got all our links down there. Follow us on social media. Twitter's going hard for me. Getting some new followers on there, doing pretty good. So yeah, all
Right.
good stuff.